give Kait presentation rights?
Already have.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our talk today addresses two of our areas of focus: saving children and supporting education. Our speaker today is Kait Whiteside, Executive Director of the Max Higbee Center, and our major project for this year. Kait attended the University of Reno to swim at the collegiate level and develop a career path in nonprofit work. After graduating with a BA in journalism with a focus in public relations for nonprofits, Kait traveled to South America for 3 months to practice Spanish, volunteer, and build skills for human service work. Among her most rewarding experiences abroad was volunteering as an assistant teacher and community outreach assistant at Iris, an orphanage and school for children with disabilities in Urubamba, Peru. The dedicated teachers and the students of Iris shaped Kait's commitment to building inclusion in communities. In 2014, Kait found a dream opportunity to combine her passion for recreation and community work as the program manager at Max Higbee Center. As a manager, one of Kait's proudest achievements was the development of the Higbee Hikers, a program that identifies accessible trails and offers staff support to participants with developmental disabilities to explore Bellingham's beloved trail network. In 2015, Kait became Max Higbee Center's Executive Director. Kait, welcome to the Rotary Club of Bellingham, and you have the floor.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Paul. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today, and it's truly an honor that Max Higbee Center's expansion project was selected for major grant funding. I'm presenting today alongside fundraising co-chairs Jennifer Mell and John Dune. Thank you for your support, Jen and John. I so appreciate it thus far. I'm going to go ahead and attempt to share my screen. You'd think I'd have the hang of it at this point in time. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and go into presentation mode. Oh, slideshow. Okay. There we go. So I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about Max Higbee Center and who we are as an organization. So Max Higbee Center provides enriching social and recreation programs for teens and adults with developmental disabilities. And all of our activities strive to promote participants' health, whether it's emotional, physical, or social health. Program activities strive to create opportunities for lifelong learning and education to build transferable skills that benefit folks throughout their life, and to increase community engagement, friendship, and socialization. And I think we all can relate to how important it is to have friends and social connections, especially right now during these really isolating and lonely times. And so Max Higbee Center has been able to do that for a number of years for folks with developmental disabilities. And our services serve individuals 13 and up. So we come in at the high school level and provide support at the high school level. And then that support maintains through a participant's life. And we hear that that's really important because there's something that's called a service cliff. So there's this abundance of support at birth and toddler and through high school. And then all of a sudden, individuals and families just are lacking support and resources and services. And so Max Higbee Center is able to really walk through life with our individuals that we serve. And these programs are not only meaningful to individuals with disabilities, but they're also very meaningful to families who are supporting a family member with a disability. It's we call respite care. And what that means is it simply means support for parents or family members who often find themselves in a lifelong caregiving role. And so Max Higbee Center programs allow families to go to work, to fulfill family obligations like grocery shopping or going to medical appointments, or simply to have time to rest and recuperate while their son or daughter is in a safe and enriching environment at Max Higbee Center. And these programs reach over 400 individuals with developmental disabilities and more than 100 families who are caring for a son or daughter with a developmental disability. Max Higbee Center started as a grassroots movement. It was founded by Dr. Max Higbee, who I believe was actually a part of the Rotary Club of Bellingham back in the day, and educators and family members who identified the need for services for people with disabilities and inclusion in all areas of life, including social and community inclusion. And in this picture, you'll see our former facility at Bay Street. It's quite small. We signed a lease 10 years ago, and this facility was supposed to be a pit stop because from the start, it was inadequate in every way. It was too small. It's only 1,600 square feet of program space. There is one bathroom. In the back corner there, you can see a tiny kitchenette with just a few cupboards and a fridge and a microwave. And it did not allow Max Higbee Center to serve our members with the dignity and respect that they deserved. As you can see, people were just crammed into this space. It was hardly accessible because of the lack of space. And our offices were upstairs. So program staff, and myself included, were inaccessible to many of our members who use wheelchairs or just have mobility limitations. And so for 10 years, we've been making do with a very inadequate space. And then in 2018, Max Higbee Center had to implement a waiting list because of a lack of space. And that waiting list now has over 50 individuals hoping to receive support from Max Higbee Center. And this is really important because Max Higbee Center is an unduplicated and unique community resource. There is no other community resource like Max Higbee Center in Whatcom County. In fact, I have yet to hear of a similar resource in the state or other areas nationally. And I hear that from funders. I hear that from family members who say, Max Higbee Center is one of the reasons, if not the reason, that we stay here in Whatcom County, because the support is so unique and so meaningful to our family. So when we implemented that waiting list, the board and I were resolved to find a long-term and larger home that would allow us to better serve our members and accommodate every individual on that waiting list. I sometimes forget to breathe during these presentations, so I'm going to take a breath here. So when the board and I were resolved to find a larger location, and when we brought on consultants and engaged in the strategic planning process, part of the work that was cut out for us was to identify and really understand the community need. And it was quickly very clear that the community need was overwhelming. In Whatcom County, there are 21,000 individuals with developmental disabilities. Max Higbee Center serves 400 individuals with developmental disabilities. So while we will never serve everybody with a developmental disability in our community, we understood that we must do everything that we can to meet that need. Additionally, people with disabilities are underserved and economically constrained, especially those who are relying on a Social Security income. In fact, we found that 26% of individuals with a disability live below the poverty line, compared to only 11% of individuals without a disability. So that's a huge discrepancy and disparity. And additionally, the poverty threshold only takes into account assets and income to determine who is at or below the poverty threshold. It does not take into consideration expenses. And there's especially growing research right now that is capturing disability-related expenses, such as wheelchairs, higher medical expenses that are not reimbursable by health insurance, vehicle or home modifications so that their home or vehicle is accessible and functional. So there's additional expenses to achieve the same quality of life simply because a person has a disability. And there's the growing research is arguing that that poverty threshold needs to be adjusted to capture those expenses. And as we know, poverty contributes to all sorts of really negative outcomes, such as food insecurity, lack of health care, poor health outcomes, limited housing and homelessness, barriers to education, and barriers to social or community inclusion. So again, this underscored the importance of resources like Max Higbee Center. Additionally, in Whatcom County, more than 50% of adults with developmental disabilities live at home. There's simply a lack of resources for affordable housing, and we know that, especially in Whatcom County, housing is quite a crisis right now, but there's also a lack of supported living support resources for folks with disabilities to be able to live at home, or to live independently. So many adults with disabilities are finding themselves living at home with their parents or with family members because there just aren't those options available to them. And so Max Higbee Center, again, is very important to families and to giving them respite and space and time to go to work and to do the things that they need to do and to establish their own identities, to have time apart. And then I'd also like to mention that the board and I are particularly paying attention to historic and ongoing health disparities that are widening in the COVID-19 crisis. People with developmental disabilities are 3 times more likely to have an underlying medical condition, putting them at higher risk to contract or become seriously ill from COVID-19. And as a higher risk group, that contributes to stricter and longer periods of isolation and higher unemployment rates. And so we are paying attention to the impacts of the pandemic to the population that we serve, understanding that our role and our support and the need is going to grow in the years to come as we continue to experience the effects of the pandemic. And so all of this research and the data and the evidence that pointed to the community need, it informed the board and I and our understanding of what this expansion project needed to be. So with this, we understood that we could not just create small incremental growth for Max Higbee Center with a new space. Max Higbee Center and this community had an obligation and a social responsibility to take on big transformational change, to really accommodate as many people as we could, understanding what was at stake here. And so that's when we started to have conversations with the city of Bellingham, with Whatcom County, with private funders and donors to say, we need your support and we need a community of support to be able to really think and dream big here for a new and long-term space for Max Higbee Center. There we go. And that is where 1400 North State Street came into play. So we'd been searching for a location for a year. And when we found 1400 North State Street, which was formerly Alicia's Bridal and the Formal House, it is without a doubt the perfect location for Max Higbee Center for a number of reasons. We were able to sign a long-term lease at this giant space. It is 5,000 square feet, which will more than triple Max Higbee Center's program space. And it will allow us to eliminate that waiting list because it is so large. As you can see, it's all one level, so it's completely accessible. All program areas, all office areas will be accessible on the same floor. And it's in the heart of downtown location, of core downtown, so that members can and programs can access downtown businesses, organizations like the library and the YMCA. It's 1 block from the bus station, which is critical for access for our membership. And I really love that this location signals that people with developmental disabilities deserve to be in the heart of Bellingham and in the heart of our community, rather than sequestered away into a more isolated or remote part of Bellingham or the county, which absolutely, that real estate was more affordable, but the board staff and I understood that that would be counterproductive to our mission of inclusion and respect. And so when we saw the opportunity to sign a long-term lease of up to 25 years at this particular space, we knew it was the right option for Max Higbee Center. And this picture here celebrates the start of construction in February, which was a really joyous occasion. So this project, I talked about transformational change. This project was quite transformational for the interior of 1400 North State Street. The construction included a full demolition of the interior. Those top photos are before construction, and as you can see, it was worse for the wear of about 50 years of use. Nothing was accessible. The bathrooms were so small, you could hardly get in there. And so we were really glad when we were doing initial assessments to find that all of the walls were non-load bearing and could easily come down, so that Max Higbee Center could build its dream design from the ground up to be able to accommodate all of our members' needs and our program needs, and really hold diverse and vibrant programs in this space. And so this is construction down below in its final stages, and we're thrilled with how it's coming together. And additionally, we were really pleased that that our landowner negotiated deep rent offsets for 10 years, so that the funding model was manageable for Max Higbee Center, and to recognize the significant investment that Max Higbee Center and the community were putting into this building. So it really came together in a way that was feasible, manageable, and allowed us to achieve the vision of the project. This is the design that Jennifer Mall and Zervis did for us, the floor plans, and I've got to say it was just a pleasure to work with Jen. She brilliantly put together a floor plan that is functional, accessible, cost-effective, and efficient. And again, I'm going to use the word transformation. It will transform the way that Max Higbee Center is able to provide services. So you can kind of see here, there's a giant grand recreation room where we can hold really festive and fun activities like Zumba classes and workout classes, dance classes, all kinds of fun, boisterous activities. And then in the back over here, you can see there's another room that's going to be our quiet activity room for lower stimulation activities like arts and crafts, book club. And so for the first time, Max Higbee Center will be able to accommodate people who have noise sensitivities or who need lower stimulation environments. In the previous facility you saw, it was all one room, so it was impossible to accommodate folks who couldn't be in a really festive and loud environment. So we'll be able to have 2 activities running at once. We have 4 accessible bathrooms, a full kitchen for cooking classes so that people can continue to learn and practice cooking skills. And then all of our program staff rooms and offices, they have a tremendous amount of relights or glass so that folks can work in their office while maintaining really good line of sight into program areas to ensure that people are safe and having fun and supported appropriately. And so this project was possible because an entire community of supporters came together, and there was just this groundswell of support, which again underscored the importance and the need of these services and the support for this vision of an inclusive and welcoming space for people to socialize, recreate, and to continue education at Max Higbee Center. And so our anchor public partners were the City of Bellingham and Whatcom County, and then we had a number of private foundations and private funders come together in support. And then Rotary Club of Bellingham, thank you for coming in really in the final hour of this project when we were facing a budget shortfall due to some unexpected costs. And then also COVID in the spring slowed construction and added costs to our project. And so the board and I and staff and the Max Higbee community are so grateful for this support that allowed us to continue with construction without taking a construction loan out during these economically trying times. Your support will also allow us to make the final purchases for capitalized equipment so that we can achieve the full vision and intention of this welcoming community space. I would now like to turn it over to a couple of Max Higbee Center community members. We have Andrea Shenton and Ian Shenton here today to share their story. I've been talking a lot about the meaningfulness of our programs, and I wanted you all to have a chance to hear it firsthand from Andrea and Ian. So I will turn it over to you two.
Then
All right.
It'll be my turn.
That's right, Ian. How's that? Do I click on my
We
screen?
can hear you, Andrea.
Perfect. All right. Hello, everyone. I feel so grateful to be a part of the Max Higbee Center and to hear the Rotary Club in action. I was quite nervous, but you all seem like really awesome people that took all the nerves out. And your mission statement in the beginning, man, it was just very meaningful and very impactful for me. So thank you for that. And thank you, President Gary. As Kate mentioned, my name's Andrea, and I was asked to share a little bit about my family's connection to the Max Higbee Center. It goes way back. My oldest brother, Jim, moved here from Seattle, and back then, as Kate alluded to, even in a metropolis as big as Seattle, we didn't have a lot of programming, but there was some. And what Jim did have, he missed. So in 1989, when my folks with Jim moved to Bellingham, we discovered the Max Higbee Center. I think at that point it was only about 4 years old. And we signed Jim up. It immediately worked for him. He's very social. And I also volunteered. I tease, I like to say, they let me hang out with them. And after all these years, I'm happy to say they still do. In the early days of the Max Higbee Center, the programming was pretty limited, nothing like the 60 hours of programming that they offer now. 60 hours of diverse and enriching programming. As Kate mentioned, those 60 hours could include yoga, hiking club, book club, dance, cooking classes, bingo. I mean, it really goes on and on. I like to visit, and I can do yoga in the morning with members and then come back in the afternoon and learn how to make sushi. It's really quite remarkable. So long-term members, like my brother, as Kate mentioned, this is a part of their life. He has thrived in the consistency and longevity of the Max Higbee Center. When COVID happened, what they did to outreach and to make sure in these crazy times that members were still connected has just been remarkable. It's not the same. We're all pining away for when we can open the new facility. But they've been there for him. Through the years, they've been there for him through my parents' death. They've supported all of us through my cancer diagnosis and treatment, which I can't even express. Might have to grab some tissues. With how important that was, obviously. But to know that my son and my brother, who I'm a guardian for, were enjoying themselves and not worrying about me on chemo or not engaged, they had their friends, they had that support, because that's what community does, right? New members find a place to go after high school. There isn't a cliff here in Bellingham, as Kait mentioned. They have the Max Higbee Center after graduating high school or community transitions. Maybe they're new to Bellingham, but they don't find only a place to go. They find a real community. 25 years ago, I was blessed with a beautiful boy named Ian, and Ian found himself graduated from community transitions, another awesome program. And I just assumed that the natural progression was for him to engage with the Max Higbee Center. But as it turns out, Ian wasn't so sure. He loved community transitions and his connections and his friends. And although some of them transitioned to the Max Higbee Center, Ian was nervous. Transitions are difficult and can be frightening. Right. With his graduation complete, Ian lacked a real social outlet and began isolating and getting comfortable only seeing family and friends. He engaged less, and it was concerning, to say the least. We were worried, but the Max Higbee Center was determined. And because of the incredible staff, their promise, their commitment to giving everyone an opportunity at recreation and social engagement, we all prevailed. We persevered and we prevailed. And Ian became one of the most enthusiastic members. Before COVID, he had even started taking the paratransit bus on his own, tooting his own horn here, to and from the center. It was a giant step for Ian. Ian is fully engaged in his Max Higbee Center community, and his life is so much richer for it. Nothing gives me more joy than driving downtown and seeing my son and my brother with the rest of my friends from the Max Higbee Center walking to their next adventure. They're chatting, they're laughing. They might pause for a few minutes to allow a straggler to catch up to the group, because at the Max Higbee Center, no one is left behind. We're kind of like the Marines.
And
as shown by the expansion, their pledge is also to make sure no one is left out. This goal can remain a reality because of your support. Even in these crazy times, the center remains devoted to the vision of Max Higbee. It has the unrelenting commitment and energy of Kait Whiteside and of the directors and the staff and volunteers' creativity and dedication. And we have you folks, the countless donors, big and small, that help ensure the Max Higbee Center will continue its role here in Bellingham for decades to come. But most importantly, the Max Higbee Center has its members. They are the cement of the community. The members are the heart and soul of this organization. The Max Higbee Center members represent the best in our community. They support each other. They give essential input on programming. They welcome each other, and they welcome new members. That Max Higbee members are powerful, creative, and resilient. And as long as the support continues, the Max Higbee Center will remain an example of how Whatcom County does things right. Because here, like at the Max Higbee Center, we make sure no one is left behind. Thank you all so much for letting me share. Now my son Ian would like to say a few words. All right, buddy. There you go.
All right, now I'm gonna close out my speech for now.
Hello?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ian. I go to the Max Higbee Center and do activities and hang out. I don't go there because of COVID-19. I don't go there because of COVID-19.
But you're excited
But
for when it's open,
I can't wait till it's open.
so you can feel
So you can feel welcome.
and
And
welcome.
welcome new members.
Mhm. Perfect.
So with that, thank you for your support. Goodbye and stay safe.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian and Andrea, for sharing.
Thank you very much for letting us share.
I think you both said it beautifully. So I'm just going to end with another thank you. I know we're running short on time here.
Short on
Like Andrea said,
time here.
this project, it will leave a legacy of inclusion in our community, and it will demonstrate that inclusion is a core value in Whatcom County, and that our community members, our neighbors, our coworkers, our peers with developmental disabilities are welcomed and valued and respected members of this community. So thank you so much for supporting this project. Thank you again, Ian and Andrea, for sharing your story. It's truly a highlight of my career to be a part of this project. I'd now like to welcome any questions at this point.
Kate, this is John Dunn. I just wanted to not only thank you for this wonderful program, but I just want to kind of reiterate that not only is this new center in the heart of Bellingham's downtown, I hope that by its location so close to where we all move around from time to time, that it keeps those with disabilities not only close to downtown, but close to our hearts. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you bringing this all to our attention. I mean, it gives us an insight that we didn't have before.
Thank you, John.
Kate, this is Bob Morse. First of all, thanks for the great presentation. And I have a quick comment. I am delighted that our club has picked up this project, and I know we will fully fund it, and I will personally heartily support it. My question is your operational funding for this larger facility secured, or is that another chore for you to have to work through?
Well, first of all, thank you for your commitment and support, Bob. It's truly appreciated. And that was part of the work that we did in this project, where it was to create a long-term funding model over the next 10 years that looked at all of our revenue sources and how to grow and stretch those revenue sources and increase our grant funding and donor funding and fundraising. I've got to say, a lot has changed in the last 7 months. Sometimes it feels like we're starting from scratch a little bit, but we do have the bones to lean on for a funding model. And there, of course, will be adjustments in the wake of the pandemic. But we do have a plan to move forward, and we've been fortunate to receive support and emergency funding like the Paycheck Protection Program and other COVID-19 funding sources to help us through this hard time, so that we can focus on that funding model for growth and expansion.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any last questions?
I had a question. Kate, Steve Van here, and again, thank you so much for the presentation. It's really heartwarming. And the question I had, the program is for those with developmental disabilities, not, for example, psychiatric disabilities. So it's only for developmental disabilities individuals. That's
correct. We focus on developmental disabilities, but really we have like a open arms approach where we meet one-on-one with each individual who's interested in accessing our services to see if it is a good fit and to see if we can provide the level of support that's needed. And we have talked with community partners about expanding our services to additional folks with needs. So I think that it's safe to say in the future something that the board and I would like to tackle.
Is there a level of disability below which people qualify, or how do you work that?
So it's really just a case-by-case decision that we have an intake process where we meet with families and caregivers and support teams and the individual to talk about what the needs are. And we're able to provide quite a bit of support these days, especially with our one-on-one recreation mentor program, where that pairs one of our staff with a member, especially for those who need some additional support or have specific goals that they're working towards. So that opens up a lot of doors by having that service available. Sometimes folks will need to bring a caregiver if they have really intense medical needs, or a family member who's able to support with that. So it's really just a case-by-case basis to determine what that support looks like.
Okay.
One final, will you be able to increase the capacity from 400 to some higher number now with the bigger facility?
Yes, once COVID-19 restrictions are lifted, then we will be able to accommodate everybody on that wait list. So all 50 people or over 50 people on that wait list will be able to access our services, and we will be able to sustain additional growth beyond that at this new facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kate, Andrea, and Ian, terrific program. I don't think there were very many dry eyes while you were talking, at least not mine. I'm so proud to be a Rotarian so I can participate in this sort of a project. And so as we launch you, we wish you the very best and appreciate the program and the outstanding work that you're all doing. Really good program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.